All right, a couple weeks ago, well, actually a week ago, on Super Tuesday, there was a surprise that happened in American Samoa, or Samoa, as some people may say, even our candidate that's featured here in the interview. But there was a surprise that happened in the caucus out there. A candidate beat Joe Biden 51 to 40 out there and won the delegates. And I happened to be working CNN special coverage that night. And everyone was like, "Do you happen to know who this person is?" And I said, "Yes, I do," because Nick and I happened to meet him a few weeks ago at a debate with the Free and Equal folks over at the Election Foundation there. So Jason Palmer, Democrat presidential candidate, joins us here on the show. Jason, Mike, and Nick, thank you for being on with us.
Hey, Mike, Nick, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You know, Jason, it's not funny because Free and Equal and the Elections Foundation is trying to get more people noticed, right? More voices, more choices. So everyone is 60% of this country is not happy with this rematch that's happening. We want to learn more about other candidates. And so when I was at CNN, the media folks there were like, "I don't know who this person is. I don't," and it's like, yeah, this is part of the problem because we don't give a platform to some of these other folks. So in that vein, I want you to tell the audience a little bit about your platform, your message. Why are you running for president of the United States?
Yeah, I'm running for president of the United States because I've seen the future. Now, I'm a venture capitalist and an entrepreneur, and a few of the businesses I've started before, if you want to talk about them, one was 7 years too early, one was 20 years too early. And so I often have invested in things a little bit too early. As I've aged, I've gotten closer and closer to seeing like what's the immediate future, the 5 year future, 10-year future. And the immediate future I see, especially in my own market. I'm an education technology investor. I've been working on innovation and education for 20 years. Is that we're moving to what I call a no collar economy or a new collar economy, that more and more of these technology jobs, healthcare jobs, these are jobs that pay $50,000 to $200,000 a year. You can upskill yourself in less than a year to these jobs by getting certificates and credentials, and that catapults you into the middle class. They're like the blue collar jobs of the 50s and 60s, where you didn't have to go to college, but you could earn enough to achieve the American dream and be in the middle class. Those are the jobs now, these no collar or new collar jobs. And why does that matter? Well, in my particular sector, $200 billion a year is put in by the federal government into people going to traditional colleges and universities. And you probably have heard about the college debt problem, 1.8 trillion in college debt and growing. And not enough people know there is a faster, less expensive path to the middle class, and we need to fix that financial aid program so that people can use those loans to go to these no collar or new collar jobs programs that are at boot camps and certification training programs. And you've heard of them like Google Analytics, Microsoft SQL Server, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, et cetera. They're not all tech. A lot are in healthcare as well, like becoming the technician for any of the equipment that's being used inside hospitals and clinics. So that's the biggest part, is letting people know we have an education revolution underway and we need to steer the funding towards helping people quickly upskill to the middle class. The second thing is I see where our economy needs to go from a capitalist system perspective, and it's called conscious capitalism. It's not a term that I invented. I'm part of the conscious capitalist movement. You can read more about it on my website, but it basically involves companies called B corporations and impact investing. And B corporations are companies that don't exist just to make profit. They actually can have a multiple stakeholder approach. So a company can be people first and actually care the most about its employees or its customers, or it could be focused on improving the community or improving and having positive impact in the world. And all the companies I invest in are focused on this positive impact in the world. They're trying to help people get out of prison and get their first job. They're trying to help people graduate from high school or get these middle class credentials I was just talking about. And so we need to move our whole economy towards conscious capitalism. And there's a way to do that by passing a national B corporation law and actually changing the tax code so that if you're a 100% focused on profit and shareholders, you would be a C corporation, you'd pay a 25% tax rate. If you're a B corporation, you would only pay a 15% tax rate. And having been someone who went to Harvard Business School and has started a lot of companies in my life, I know every corporation in America will kind of twist itself over in a knot to try to become a B corporation. And in fact, big companies like JP Morgan, Chase, American Express, Patagonia, Whole Foods, Amazon have actually talked about moving themselves towards being in this conscious capitalism mode or this stakeholder capitalism mode, but they don't have a reason to do it yet. So we actually have to change the tax code to create this incentive to move the entire economy into for good businesses. There's more to the agenda focused on climate change, which is another part of impact, focused on giving people more rights and human rights around the world, which maybe we can get to.
Jason, to that end, about just what you really sort of projected there in terms of economic vision, compare that to we heard the president on Thursday State of the Union talk about the fact that there are more jobs now not requiring a college degree, which is what you were
Right.
speaking to a moment ago.
Yep.
But what seems to get in the way of us really fully embracing that I really like that phrasing, by the way.
No collar or new
Yeah, I
collar.
will attribute that to you forever and ever going out of this
Well, the
conversation.
thing is, I haven't even decided, is it no collar or is it new collar? Most of the young people I talk to say there's no collar at all in my world. So it should be no collar. So the youth are convincing me it needs to be no collar.
Yeah, I listen. I got sweaters that have no collar. I mean, and it works for most of my meetings. So, but Jason, what then holds us back from embracing an economy that you just envisioned a moment ago?
Well, there are many things. The biggest is, and this is actually the third pillar of my campaign, is that we need to modernize the government. The government is stuck in the human resources and financial management and kind of organizational design structures that date back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and it hasn't really been upgraded. And people who've been in government, probably a lot of whom are listening to the show, know about your GS11, your GS12, you get raises based on seniority. There's a whole pension system, and it's kind of geared towards people who are lifers, who are going to be in the same company, in this case, the government, for their whole life. What we need to do is we need to transform that HR system so that people can go into the government for 2, 3, 4 year tours of duty. And these could be entrepreneurs, they could be business people, they could be people who work in nonprofits, but they don't want to devote their life to the government. They want to go in, they want to have an impact, and they want to move on. And we also have to add more GS levels, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and actually have them be based on merit and actually be giving people promotions and additional pay. Government pay has fallen way behind the private sector. People in government need to be paid more. You probably won't hear that from any other candidate, but that is definitely the truth. And that, at the same time, we're paying way too much for consulting firms in the government because we've been trying so hard to squash down the number of employees. And that is actually, we're paying twice, 2 or 3 times more for all these consultants that are running around in the government as well. So there's, too many consultants. Employees are not being paid enough. The best and brightest are not necessarily going to work in government anymore. We need to revitalize this love of public service that used to exist here. And we got to change all those policies, HR policies, technology systems. This is not the sexy stuff. So I usually don't talk about the third pillar that much, but it actually is the most important if we're going to modernize our government and get it focused on delivering, the services that people need rapidly, efficiently, and correctly.
Jason, let's get into a little bit of what you were hearing as you've been making the trail. You were telling me off air, and I want to bring it over here about some of the states that you've gotten on the ballot on. But let's dive into why we're actually talking to each other, which is the victory in American Samoa. And
Totally.
obviously, you had mentioned, I was mentioning earlier about the CNN stuff, and you happened to be in an interview with Laura Coates that night. So you were saying that this wasn't your typical victory. You did some town halls there. You had actually never visited there, but you heard some voter concerns. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is you were hearing from voters and why you think that they voted for you as their candidate?
Yeah, I think the reason that I won in American Samoa really boils down to two things. One was a great local team, Miracle, and a team of two. 3 part-time employees did a phenomenal job over the last month of really getting out there, rallying people, talking to them individually one by one. And then two, really engaging with those voters over these virtual or Zoom town halls, kind of like this actually, and listening to their concerns. And they had 3 main concerns. One was about education. They need to have more resources for education. This is actually already a key part of my platform. I learned details that are very important that I don't think any presidential candidate has really learned before, which is that their one college in American Samoa is a community college, and it doesn't allow you to get these advanced degrees. So if you want to go into healthcare, you have to fly to Hawaii, you have to go off the island, you have to move apart from your family. So we need to help upgrade that college so it could do four-year programs and these certificate programs I was talking about. And I actually engaged with the voters and talked to them about this and learned that was their need, and it matches my expertise. Then we went on to healthcare. Healthcare is a big issue there. It turns out they only have one hospital on the island. They've been trying for the last decade to get enough resources to get a second hospital built. They also need to upgrade a lot of systems and technology in the first hospital. So I made it part of my platform that, of course, we're going to give you the resources you need to bring first hospital up to snuff and to actually build that second hospital. Really simple stuff that the United States has not been doing. And then the third is also a big part of my campaign already, which is about climate change. And this is a place that could actually be an exemplar for climate change. We can make it a carbon neutral island. It's really 5 islands that are populated there, but one is, majority of the people are living on the one island. And we can actually implement solar panels, wind farms, geothermal, and actually turn this into a carbon neutral place in the United States and show how it actually reduces the loss of the coral reefs, can save the shorelines that are being eroded. Their tuna industry has been severely impacted both by the Jones Act and also by climate change. These are the types of things I talk to them about. And I think like the level of detail that I listened to them at and could respond to them at, and then I did a 6-minute video so it could be propagated across the whole island. One of my employees said this, and I think it's kind of true. Like everybody that gets a chance to hear me and that sees that I listen to them and then come up with policies that we can put into our platform that actually address their needs, that's a different kind of politician. There's been nobody like that, really. Maybe Bill Clinton back in the 90s. And they gravitate to it. The problem is I just can't get out there to talk to everybody. And that's why I actually built and deployed an artificial intelligence version of myself on my website, which has gotten a little bit of press lately too, where you can actually go to my website and you click on the Palmer AI button and you can ask a talking head version of myself any question you want, and I will give you answers based on my policy platform, because I feel like I need to have that 3 to 5 question exchange or 15-minute interaction with everybody for them to realize, wow, this is a serious candidate and he actually gets the issues, and he hasn't been in politics his whole life. How's that possible?
It probably works in your favor, not being in politics.
I guess that's true. People do want an outsider. So,
well, to that end,
Nick, quick break from the pod because this episode is presented by our friends over at SeatGeek. Your next best night ever is waiting, my friend, and they've got the tickets. You want to go to an NBA game, an NFL game, a concert, Major League Baseball, whatever it is, all you got to do is go to SeatGeek.com. You're going to enter in the promo code, Can We Please Talk, and you're going to get $20 off that purchase right now at SeatGeek. Nick, what are you going to do with your $20 off on those tickets, buddy?
I mean, that saves me on anything. I can get food at the game. I can just get the tickets themselves. I mean, baseball's coming along, so I'm excited for that. I can get Upper Deck tickets and just nothing, and then just all I gotta do is worry about food. I mean, anywhere I want to use this, it's well worth it. $20 is a worthwhile investment.
That's right. And I've seen you at sporting events. You eat a lot. Nick needs those $20 off. So go to SeatGeek.com right now. Enter in the promo code, Can We Please Talk? You're going to get $20 off that purchase.
The vision that you're speaking of an economic vision, what we talked about before, it sounds incredible and it's very clear.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're having this conversation today because you represent or running for 1/3 of the way our current government operates. Seemingly right now, our legislative branch has been perhaps the most problematic. We saw a little bit of that on Thursday with conservatives yelling and trying to shout down the president. And there's been more and more of a loss of decorum, in Congress at this point. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm probably showing my age saying something like that, but it simply is what it is. For a vision like yours to be executed, and for anyone's, regardless of who wins this election,
yes,
it seems to be the problem is that part of it is what's going on in the legislative body. Jason, what's your read of why Congress continues to devolve into really what seems to be on both sides sometimes, almost a cartoonish reality show, and something that seems to be the complete antithesis to what our founding fathers and mothers really tried to intend?
Yeah, I'm going to go fast past your question that you ask and say, like, the people that study this about polarization, they say it's partly due to social media, that you can trace it back to the growth of social media. Then some people say it even goes back to 2000, and it's related to the kind of rearrangement of the parties, and maybe even 2008 with the Tea Party movement, or when Obama was elected. Like, it definitely has been growing. All the charts I see show more and more polarization. At this point, I am done researching it, and I'm ready to do action. So this week I'm announcing a new organization that's going to be going in parallel with my presidential campaign, called Together, with an exclamation point. And Together is going to focus on investing in 20 down ballot races for Congress, where we are specifically going to target and try to displace the crazies that are in Congress with more common sense, or I actually call them radical common sense candidates who will run against them. And I'm purposely going to pick purple districts where I think I can get a blue representative elected and kind of flip it from red to blue. And this isn't like a new thing for me. Back in 2018, in February, March timeframe, I went on Facebook in a very public way, which is kind of different for a business person, and said, I did all this research over the weekend. I'm investing in these 20 women that are running for Congress. The primaries hadn't even happened yet. 19 of my 21 at the primary level, and 16 of the 21 when it finally came true at the end in November of that year. This time I'm doing the same thing, but I'm going to focus it on young people. I'm going to raise a PAC and a super PAC to try to make it as big and as impactful as possible. Last time it was just my own money. And we don't just need to take the presidency back. We need to actually take the Congress back and put more radical common sense center people in there. And I also might be the first PAC, I haven't done enough research on this, or PAC or super PAC, that will give to both parties, actually. So I am going to mostly give to Democrats. Obviously, I am a Democrat. But if it, to displace Marjorie Taylor Greene, we actually need to invest in a common sense Republican to knock her out at the primary level. I will do that. And I am very upset at the people who last time around tried to get the crazies elected. That was a terrible strategy that some people in my party pursued. We need to bring people back to the center, and the organization is called Together, exclamation point.
Listen, I mean, you're not going to get two bigger supporters of that radical centrism than me and Nick. Although some people.
Well, that's partly why I'm here. I've done my research too.
There we go. Okay, another listener there and another subscriber. Shout out to producer Tim. He'll probably clip that, so that will live in the pantheon of this show. All right, Jason, I do want to ask you, because you and I were talking a little bit before air, and I didn't get to ask you this. So let me ask you this here. Michael Bloomberg won American Samoa once upon a time, right? And I'm not sure how much Bloomberg got in terms of the ability to talk to other folks on the campaign side for President Biden at the time. I'm not sure if you've even been approached by anybody there. You were telling me, and you've said this in articles, about your friend telling you the chance of you winning the presidency is like an ant building a spaceship, which I thought was a really bad friend. But at least he told you bluntly. So what I want to ask you is, and you just kind of gave a little bit of your answer of like what your plan is to do. But as you continue to carry this out right now, what is your message to President Biden right now? If he were to reach out to you and say, look, you've done a little bit of the legwork, you've gotten a little bit of the voters telling you some top issues for you, and they obviously voted for you, what would be your message to him as we get ready for this election cycle? If nothing goes in your direction, you mentioned a little bit about the PAC, but like, what else would you want a message to the president right now?
Well, the biggest thing is to get aligned with my new PAC and my new super PAC, because we're going to be focused on getting young people out registered to vote, and independents who Biden is polling not that well with actually right now. And in order to get those people energized, there's a few things that Biden needs to tweak. But overall, I do agree with President Biden on probably 90% of things at this point. But the things he needs to tweak are, he needs to have a positive economic vision for the future. I hope he starts using the phrase conscious capitalism. Wow, I even tongue-tied myself on that. Conscious capitalism. I hope he starts talking about the no-collar economy. I thought it was great what he said in the State of the Union. It's in that direction about you don't even need to go to college and you can actually get to the middle class. And he really needs to talk more to young voters himself. He needs to actually make himself more available. I'm part of the Free Biden movement. Free him up. Let him talk. because when he talks freely, he's very authentic. People care about what he says. He cares about what they say. I think he could have done the same exact thing. If he had taken as many hours to work on American Samoa as I did, he would have heard those same concerns. He would have authentically listened to them, and he would have responded to those voters. And he's very good in that environment. So that's what I would recommend to him is be your authentic self, talk to voters, and conscious capitalism, no collar economy. That's the way to go. Positive, optimistic vision of the future. Rebuild the middle class.
Jason, on that point, we've talked now about I've alluded to the State of the Union a little bit,
Yeah.
and what you've been speaking to about free Biden seems to be, I think you've been more succinct about your analysis of it, seems to be sort of what people are picking up on, that the energy on Thursday is probably the most galvanizing we've seen from the president in a while. For me, it almost borders on, the 2017 speech after Charlottesville. From your stance, what was your take on the speech? And where in what you've heard and seen from the president are those opportunities for him to really just further enhance that, to really further lean into to being freed up? Like what should his team potentially try to cut back on or try to not get in the way so that the most authentic version of Joe Biden is who we see from March 10th up until November 5th?
Yeah. Well, I think it's less about the messaging other than, having that economic messaging I was just talking about. I think that needs to be front and center. He also and did talk about women's reproductive rights. I think that is a key part of this election and really will drive a lot of people to the polls. But it's more about where Biden goes to speak. So, for example, we just passed a massive infrastructure bill. You should be where high-speed rail lines are opening up, or where there are buses that are running completely on green energy and talking about that, like kind of roving reporter Biden showing how the shovels are being put in the ground, the actual jobs are being created. And that applies to the Inflation Reduction Act too. There are something like 200, 300,000 jobs that have been created that are green energy jobs related to climate change. Go to where those places are, show all those solar panels being put up or the geothermal thing being built in the ground, like actually demonstrate that your policies led to these jobs and this green outcome. This is why the American people are not happy, even though the jobs keep going up, according to reports. It doesn't match their reality. They need to see much more of this. And, people like Pete Buttigieg could be doing this, and he is starting to do it. I saw him on TV the other day. He's a great spokesperson, but we need to get everybody out there talking about real live examples with real live people where the money is being put to work successfully. I do think it's less about messaging, and it's more about a lot more messaging with real living examples.
I like that, and I agree with that. Jason, before we let you go, palmerforpresident.us, and I know you're going to tease the site in a second, but we like to do this when authors come on the show, and I always make the joke of, hey, your book is there, somebody has picked it up, you lean over their shoulder, you whisper, hey, I wrote that book, let me tell you what it's about. So now people go for palmerforpresident.us. They don't want to read the whole thing. They want to hear it from the man himself right now. Give us a little bit of the politician right now. What is Jason Palmer? What does he stand for? What's the platform? How can they donate? How can they get involved? Tell us a little bit more, Jason.
Yeah, you vote for Jason Palmer if you want our country to move into the future right away, not in 20 years. So I am a technology forward investor and entrepreneur, and I want to bring that to the federal government. I think I'm the first time a real entrepreneur has actually run for president as opposed to someone who owned a non-technology business. I should say technology entrepreneur. And on the website, there are 25 different positions we didn't get to talk about on immigration, on Gaza. These are some of the most important issues that come up right now. And I have a coherent philosophy that really boils down to the people need to have as much freedom as possible. The government needs to be organized in a technologically savvy way so it delivers high quality services to people. And wherever possible, we need to move our politics back to the common sense center or the radical common sense approach and actually pass and modernize our laws and our implementation of those laws in an efficient manner. Now, if you want an efficient business person approach to a democratic politics, I'm your guy.
I love it. That's a great pitch right there. And we got a golf clap there from our co-host, Jason Palmer. Like I mentioned, Palmer for President.us. Jason, listen, continued success to you in whatever direction it goes. We love the idea that you're going with respect to the pack and pulling people back into the proverbial middle. I think that's truly important in our politics and how it's become so divisive. So I wish you all the best. Continued success to you, sir, and please stay safe.
Same. Thanks to both of you. This has been fun.
Hey, thanks for watching the Can We Please Talk podcast. Whatever clip you just watched, we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stick around for some more. Subscribe to the channel. My partner's over here smashing the button. Come on, do him a favor. So hit subscribe.